How's it going? And welcome to The Guitar Effect. My name's Rob. In this video I'm going to be talking about combining the NUX Cerberus with the Mooer Preamp Live to create a really powerful direct-to-PA or recording rig, okay? And before I do, as always, I would ask you to please like and subscribe and hit the notifications bell so you can be kept up to date every time I put out a new video. Okay, so this is the pedal board that I'm going to talk about today, and as you can see, it's actually too big for the pedal board that I have, right? So, but it's the best pedal board I had to demonstrate putting the two of them together. So what this is the Mooer Preamp Live here, which I made a video about in literally my last video, and then the NUX Cerberus, which I've made two videos about already. One using it in isolation with an amplifier, and one using it with the Joyo American sound as a direct rig, and it was how successful it was in that capacity that made me want to try this, okay? So the Mooer Preamp Live is, I'll put a video up about that here, and that is basically the ability to have 12 different amplifier cab and mic combinations available via these 4-foot switches, and there's 3 banks, so 4x3 is 12. And that's what that does, and it has an XLR output that you can send to the desk, and then a 1/4-inch output that you could send to an amplifier if you wanted to. And then it also has, the other thing then is a NUX Cerberus, which is a multi-effects switching system. No, not a switching system, a multi-effects unit that has analog, boost, drive and distortion, and digital modulation and digital delay. Both of these, in the grander scheme of things, I would say, are relatively affordable. I picked up the Cerberus for about €120, I think, €100, something like that, second hand, and the Preamp Live was about €200, I think, second hand. And what's interesting about that is for roughly €300, maybe 350 or 60 by the time you actually put them on a board and power them and stuff. Actually, probably about €400 by the time you put them on a board and power them. You get a very what's the word I'm looking for? Able live rig for playing, I think, a lot of different types of gigs. Because where this comes into its own is when you combine them with MIDI. Also, I've looked around on the web a lot about the MIDI capabilities of the Cerberus, and there's a lot of information about the PC or the CC commands of commanding the Cerberus with something else. But couldn't find anything about whether the Cerberus could send PC commands, which is program change, to bring up program changes or presets on something else. And I tried it with the Line 6 M5 and it didn't work. And then I plugged it in and it immediately worked with the Preamp Live, which just opens up a huge world of possibilities. So now every time I change a preset on the Cerberus, it'll change a preset in the Preamp Live, which allows me to have a clean preset with a clean amp, a dirty preset with a dirty amp, a heavy preset with a heavy amp, and a lead preset with whatever amp I want. And each one of those can have their own cabinet and mics as well, which is really powerful. It's basically kind of like a cheap Helix sort of situation, without nearly the effects quality or capacity from the Helix, but the amp models in the Mooer unit are extremely good. And also the way that this works, the reason I don't like amp modeling is it's too hard to adjust the settings that you've created on anything like a Helix when you get to the gig and you realise you don't like the way something sounds. With this, all the effects are editable with knobs in the front, and all the amp tones are editable with knobs in the front. So you can edit anything really quickly on the floor with this. Press save and that preset remains the way you want it to remain. Now, one really important thing is signal chain. So I always try to get signal chain to be the best that it can be. And the way I want this to work is I want my guitar to go into the Cerberus to hit the boost, the overdrive and distortion. And then I want it to go out of the Cerberus to hit the Preamp Live's preamp. But then I want it to come back from the Preamp Live's preamp into the Cerberus to hit the modulation and delay. But then I want to go back into the Preamp Live, so I hit the cab sim and the XLR compensated output, right? Or the IR output. So I wanted to go guitar, gain pedals, preamp, modulation and time effects, and then speaker simulation. And this can do that. And the way you do it is you plug into the input of the Cerberus, and then from the output of the overdrive and the distortion section, right, so before the effects loop, you go from there into the input of the preamp live, and then from the output, or from the effects end, I should say, of the preamp live, you go into the input of the modulation and delay section, and then from the output of the modulation and delay section, you go back into the return of the preamp live, and then from the output you go to your recorder or mixing desk, right? So that's the way I have it all set up. It works really, really well, as I'm hoping you agree with when you see the video. By the way, this foot switch in the back, which is like really badly accessible on this pedal board, but I won't be keeping this pedal board the way it is. This turns on the modulation and reverb effects on the Cerberus no matter what preset you're in. Okay, so let's get into the audio demo and have a listen to this rig now. Okay, so for demoing this pedal board, I'm using this parts caster, which I've used in the last few videos, and this is because this is my main guitar for like these function kind of gigs. It's a parts caster telly I built with a P90 in the neck and a DiMarzio Chopper T humbucker in the bridge, and the middle position's out of phase. And I'm just playing straight into the pedal board and then straight out of the preamp live into the into my Scarlett 6i6 interface. I've gone through already the wiring and why I do it like that in the intro section, so I'm not going to go through that now. I'm just going to go straight into the patches. So my first patch, I'm just going to make sure I can see what amps I've selected on the preamp drive. My first patch here, well, one thing I do want to discuss before I get into this is, if you look at the pedal cam, right now the MIDI is going from the Cerberus into the preamp live. Okay, so what happens is, if I change preset, it changes preset on the preamp live. And as I mentioned before, I was really surprised at this because I tried it with a Line 6 M5 and it didn't work. And then as soon as I plugged it in, as in I tried it like months ago with Cerberus with the Line 6 M5 and it didn't work. As soon as I plugged these two cables in, it just immediately miraculously worked, which I was really shocked at. So what happens is, I have a preset set up on the Cerberus, right? Clean, dirty, heavy, and lead. So clean, dirty, heavy, and lead. I'll just show you them now. Clean, dirty, heavy, and lead. Okay? And all of those have various combinations of effects. And this is important. It's whether, like, what the overdrive settings are, what the distortion settings are, whether it's selected which one of the particular modulation effects, right? So phaser, tremolo, or univibe, what type of chorus, what type of reverb, and what type of delay. All of those are individually set for each preset. Okay, so that's the first thing. So within that, for example, if I had an overdrive on the dirty on the clean preset, that could be different to my overdrive on the dirty preset, which is really important, which is where the flexibility of this thing comes into its own. Now, as I mentioned before, these two pedals are slightly too big to put on this board, and if I was going to go down this route, which I'm considering, because the main benefit here I feel is the flexibility of the different amp models doing all of the kind of core tones really is very, very flexible, but they're so easily editable on the preamp live that if I get to the gig and I find out that my dirty tone is too toppy or too bottomy or too quiet or too loud or something, it's very easy to adjust and save that. Okay. If I was to rebuild this pedal board, the natural thing to do would be to do it the way I have it wired now, which is that you would select which preset you want on the Cerberus, and then the preamp live would respond to that PC change via MIDI and change to the required preamp. Now, there's one tiny drawback to this, which we're going to go into. In an ideal world, what would happen when you switch preset is you will be in the mode where the individual switches on the Cerberus will turn on the individual effects. Okay, so I'll show you what I mean. Right now, if I change from clean to dirty, to heavy, and to lead. Okay, if I change all those presets, that's all the switching I have at my feet. I have these two foot switches at the back which can turn on the modulation effect, so turn on the tremolo and I can turn off the reverb. Okay, that's the only switching I can do. So when I go into this preset, if I hold down the active foot switch, it turns the Cerberus into edit mode, which now means I have drive, distortion, mod and delay. So I have a boost, which just peaked there. I'll have to watch that. I have a overdrive. I have a chorus with a tremolo, and I have a delay. Okay, and I can turn all those effects on individually. But in order to get back to my presets, I have to hold down this switch and it goes back to that. Now, the reason I'm saying this is, there's a way around this, which is I'm going to bend down and I'm going to switch the MIDI leads to the other output. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to make the preamp live control the Cerberus, and I'll show you why. Just give me 1 sec. Okay, so what I've done now is I've switched around the MIDI lead. So now the preamp live is controlling the Cerberus, which is kind of counterintuitive, but it's the best way of doing this, and I'll explain why. Okay, so now, if I was in preset mode again, so I'm going to turn this back to preset mode. So now I have my 4 presets in terms of the way they are, my 4 presets set up clean, dirty, heavy and lead, and what they're doing is you'll see they're switching the Cerberus presets as well. Okay, so that's on the face of it no different to what I was doing before. However, if I switch into edit mode now every time I switch a preset, it stays in edit mode. Okay, I'm just going to turn this up slightly. And what's amazing about that is now, the way I run this pedal board is I switch to a preset before a song, and then I stay in that preset for a song. So say we're playing, I don't know, something like Long Train Running by the Doobie Brothers. That's all going to be in this clean set preset. And then I might go to the solo sound. And that's all I'm going to do in that song. So I generally will be in that one preset for that song. If we're doing, say, I'm trying to think of an example. If we're doing the Tin Lizzy song, Dancing in the Moonlight, I will be all in this heavy preset and the next pickup. And then when it comes time for the solo, I actually turn on the distortion on the board. Now, if I want to do that, the only way I can do it is running it like this, or else I can't access turning those individual effects on and off quickly within each preset. So running it like this is amazing. So right now, if I'm in that clean preset and I want to turn on an overdrive pedal, I can. Or if I wanted to turn on some chorus and delay in 1 second. Just as easy, I can turn it off, or I can turn on my delay. Obviously, at any time, I can choose to turn on the reverb and tremolo with this extra foot switch on the back. Obviously, by the way, this pedal board is laid out terribly, because I'm not going to be keeping this pedal board because everything doesn't fit, and I've just put it together for the purposes of demonstrating this in this video. So that's the way I have it set up. So every time I change a preset, be it clean, dirty, heavy or lead, it stays in edit mode on the Cerberus, but the preset settings that I have on the drive, distortion, mod and delay specific to that preset are engaged. So you'll notice, for example, right, if I go into my clean, there is a chorus and delay on the mod switch, but if I go into my, I'm hoping this is different, if I go into my heavy preset, I have it set to a rotary and a phaser, so I turn off the phaser for a second. And I have a phaser. and they are saved within that preset. So what effects are available to me on those individual foot switches on the Cerberus are set up so that when I change preset using the Preamp Live, those effects are available to me the way I've set them on the Cerberus, which is amazing. So that's the reason that I think this pedal board works, is because I can control my general gain sounds with the Preamp Live, so clean, which by the way is the, one sec, I think it's a Black Knight Clean. Yeah, it's a Black Knight Clean amp model. Dirty is the Dr. 3B. Turn on overdrive. The heavy sound is the Black Knight Dirty, I think. No, it's the J800. Again with the overdrive. It's like my classic rock sound. And the heavy is the Black Knight Distortion. So this is interesting. Right here, I actually have the boost on the Preamp Live, which you can assign just by hitting this foot switch. I have it saved with the boost on, and I have the boost in the post position, which means that it boosts the volume instead of the gain. So for a lead sound, I want a little bit of a boost in volume. So I'm using the Black Knight preamp, and I also have the mids pushed because it's a lead sound. And they're the four main presets that I would use all night. And you'll notice that in none of them, they all start with having no effects on whatsoever, except for the lead sound, which has a delay on. They all have a reverb on, by the way, because there's no reverb, which I actually had a little gripe about on the video about the Preamp Live. The Preamp Live would be much, it would be a massive help to have reverb available on the Preamp Live. But anyway, so they're my four presets. Then, if I go and hit the middle two switches, I go to the next bank of presets on the Preamp Live, and I have three presets set up here. The first one's called U2, and it's for playing U2 songs. And that uses the Matchbox 30 OD preamp, and I think I don't have any effects on in terms of overdrive or distortion. That's just the preamp. I can turn a drive on with it. I can turn on distortion with it. And I can maybe bring a chorus into it. Turn it off there. Get into quite edge-like territory there. And then on the next one, I have a huge spring reverb, and I have the boost on, and this is for Chris Isaac, Wicked Game, so it goes. I don't have a tremolo, unfortunately. And if I hit the modulation switch, it brings in tremolo. For that one song. because I need the big reverb for it. On the next preset, I have my grunge preset, and this is for Lithium and Zombie. And this uses, I think, the Cali Deep Clean, because both Kurt Cobain used a Mesa Studio preamp, and the guy from the Cranberries played Mesa Boogie amps to the best of my knowledge. So it's just a clean preset with chorus. And then I hit a distortion. Same thing for Zombie. And that's all the presets I use. So what's amazing about this is the affordability of it. Like I said, the Cerberus can be gotten for about €100 second hand, and I paid €200 second hand for the Preamp Live. You've got all the Preamp Live's modeling. You've got the ability on the Preamp Live, by the way, to turn on a boost every time you hit the active switch, and you can put that boost in a post position so that no matter what way you have it set, it will get louder for a clean boost or a solo or something. Then every time I select a new preset on the Cerberus, by the way, that the Chris Isaac one, style one, uses the 65 US twin. I can have a boost, which is on at the moment. So I have a drive, I have a distortion, I have modulation, and I have delay and reverb. There's a little bit of delay there as well, and that's the way that's set up on every single preset. And in that way, it's very, very flexible system. And also, as I said, the Cerberus remembers the exact way that you have the boost. Well, not the boost. The boost is universal, but the distortion, drive, modulation, and delay settings set per preset. Now, there's no screen here, which means, in my opinion, getting into any more than 2 banks of presets is a non-runner, or you forget where you are. And I think the Mooer Preamp Live only has 3 banks of presets anyway, so the maximum you could use would be 12 doing it like this. But obviously, and by the way this works in terms of MIDI is whatever number preset you are on. So, for example, bank 1D selects bank 1D or switch 4 on the Preamp Live. There's no way of changing that. You can't change what message comes out of the Cerberus to select something on the Preamp Live. However, you can select what program change you're sending from the Preamp Live to bring up a preset on the Cerberus, which is important. Yeah, that's kind of it. That's the 4 different sounds, and I think I'm going to explore this a little bit further. Maybe try a rehearsal with it and see how we get on, because I think it's a pretty capable system. So there you go. Pairing the NUX Cerberus or NUX Cerberus, I keep calling it NUX, which is wrong, with the Preamp Live, and using MIDI to control either like that way or that way, whichever way you're more comfortable doing it. I think I'm more comfortable using the Preamp Live to leave the Cerberus in edit mode, which I think makes this a really, really capable unit. So there you go. Hope you enjoyed the video. Any questions, throw them down below. I think if you're looking for an affordable alternative to like a multi-effects unit that doesn't have any screens and is very, very capable, I think this is a really good option. If you are still watching, thank you for watching this far, as always. If you have, please like and subscribe, and I guess I'll see you in another video again soon. Cheers, bye bye.